first up, Mark Williams of the GISC.
Thanks, Andy. I do know that we lack a strap line, so I think boringly stable might be the one which has to go there. Thank you. For those of you who actually are new to FAM, it's probably worth pointing out some of the UK Federation team. And I can't see you because of that bright light. But is Alex around? Could Alex stand up? These are the people you really should be making an effort to talk to today, particularly if you've got issues about the Federation, things you'd like us to do. Alex's main role in the Federation Help Desk, I think, is to ask really awkward questions, which he does very, very well. Gary? We're all grouped together, that's really useful. Gary's the Adena manager there, and again, any particular areas of interest you're seeking out today? Okay. And finally, I think we've got our own very own Kevin McLeod of Grand Designs, the Chief Technical Architect of the Federation. Most of you probably already know him, but Ian? And there will be a number of things come up today which I really think you'll want to seek these guys out and have a chat about. So I want to briefly talk about organisation, the current state of the Federation. I think Andy summed it up in one neat word. Some very actually exciting tools. I don't want to say unstable, but things. And then talk about development wish list, and I think that's something we want to be all communicating about, and it's the sort of thing this day is really about. First hands up question, since Andy stole my one of who's from library and who's from IT. Who here watches or reads the Game of Thrones books? I thought it would be a few more, but it's not too bad. Well, that's a diagram. It's a very complicated TV series, lots of medieval families. They marry each other off to everybody. Very complicated plot. The books are even more complicated. And that's a diagram, because you need to have a diagram in these things, of how Game of Thrones works. And that's a diagram of all the players in the identity management space in the UK and internationally, and how they sort of interrelate. And that looks fairly complicated to me as well. And if you want to blame somebody for that, that's Reese over there. So we do, Andy alluded to the fact that GISC being in a bit of a state of transition at the moment. And one of the things which is happening, and I think this is a good thing, is that Janet and GISC Collections, obviously GISC Collections technically with the Federation operator, we're merging. We're still keeping the two separate divisions, but we're merging into one. And I think this will actually be a benefit to the community, because historically, different aspects, different members of the GISC family tend to have their own communities and listen possibly to some areas better. GISC Collections historically, we've been very close to the library community and the publisher community. I think Janet would be fair to say very close to the research community and the people responsible for IT delivery within institutions. And I think by having the two together, it does reduce some of the barriers between organisations. It will really help the odd thing falling between the cracks, and it really helps the Federation work across all those sort of different boundaries. So that's something I'm quite excited about, and I think it's one of the things which, positive things which will be coming out of that transition phase. So that's enough organisation. So, yeah, I mean, stability, we're at 950 members now, 1,500 plus entities. I think that's at the moment sort of climbing, but not at the exponential rate we saw earlier. We have reduced the number of entities now which are reliant on SHIB 1.3. That's less than 80, and I really, really don't know how many of those are actually effectively being used and in production, because they're the ones we tend to have least contact with. In terms of the shape of the Federation, about 30% of our entities are outsourced, and that includes obviously IDP, so obviously with the current audience that being referenced Open Athens, but it also includes SPs as well. And here's an interesting one here. There's 140 members who have supplied MDUI information. That's information about, for example, supplying a logo, which we can put into our central discovery service, and a description. And that really helps a user journey when they go to the WAIF or CDS to be able to find the resources they want and know where they're coming from. And it's also, for example, that logo, you'll see later how we can use it in lots of other different tools which are connected to the Federation. And I know you won't necessarily know this depending who you're representing, but can I have a show of hands of people who know that they've sent MDUI information to the Federation? More than Game of Thrones fans, so that's quite good. Want to get that up more. It's a really tiny thing. You think, oh, it's a tiny logo. How does that help? It really does help you end users in the whole discovery process, and some of the other things we're doing as well. So really do want to increase that. Inter-Federation progress. I think if you go to Nicole's talk this afternoon, I suspect you'll pick up a bit more there as well. Where it's different stages, situations, we're talking to obviously in common about Inter-Federation, we're talking, I think, to the Irish, we've got a test aggregate going there on the Inter-Federation side of things. And I know, particularly from research community, we get lots and lots of questions about EduGain, and I know we've set out a number of the technical issues we have with EduGain, and also some of the policy issues. And I think now we've actually got representatives on there. Is it Technical Advisory Group, Ian? Whatever they call it. And we are seeing the shape of the Federation change slightly. We're getting far more student services institutions register, and they're outsourcing perhaps student services. And we're getting the growth of what we call non-funded IDPs, because again, you follow the money. And obviously, if you're an HE institution, FE institution, you're funded by HEFGE, so obviously we don't charge you to join the Federation or anything. But by non-funded, we include companies who need to get access to their staff, to resources. We're talking about, for example, work-based learners, and that community is growing, and I think that's of interest of a number of the vendors here today and providers. Tools, that's obviously RAPTOR, battery, Reese over there, and Rugin. These are two things I'm very excited about. They'll change the community, and these things are particularly going out there for the librarians. But the librarians, in some cases, be there to support them. And ironically, the librarians who are here are probably not the ones who need the support. But we really want to push those out. And I think, to be honest, I'll let Reese do the talking there. But I do have one question. Who has deployed RAPTOR now? Okay, gradually get, again, that's probably under Games of Thrones viewership, so need to change that. Oh, and Rugin, the wafer-to-zero generator, which Reese is going to tell you all about as well. So I think these are the sorts of things where we've got the critical mass of the Federation, we've got the numbers, now it's really making the service easier and better. And this is, to some extent, comes to the purpose of this day. Development wish list. You always hear that question, we can have one Trident submarine or 50 hospitals. They never say it the other way around. They never say, oh, this hospital is costing us a Trident missile, but that is all about opportunity cost and where you put your focus, because if you just do one thing, you might not be able to do another. And I think that's one of the things we want to really get out of today, is what you want the Federation to work on. So a development wish list will sort of help contribute to developing our roadmap. There's been one literary illusion already, so David Copperfield and Batman, do you know what they have in common? Somebody here knows. Somebody both reads comic books and Charles Dickens.
They're both orphans.
Oh, they're both orphans. Now, one other thing we want to get at you today is use cases for the Federation, what we can be looking at and working on. And I think Cal, where's Cal? Cal articulated the orphan issue superbly, and it's exactly the sort of thing we want. So I don't know if you want to briefly just describe your sort of problem statement.
Basically, we find that we have big triple deployment. It caters to most of our student academic population. But when we come to collaborate with external partners on the business and community engagement, civic partnerships, which are a big part of the university's mission statement for us, and we struggle because they don't have an identity provider to provide them an identity with. So what we're really looking for is what we're calling a home for the homeless, of somewhere to stick these users, so they can then collaborate and use our collaborative tools that are behind Dribbles. Tech Network has provided a service that is a very cut-down service, where it doesn't release the kind of attributes that we like to release, particularly actually attributes identifying somebody, which we need really for collaborative purposes. And also, we have to tell people to go and send their personal data off to the States for commercial company, and we're not particularly happy about that. We do it because we don't really have any other options. So, yeah, we're looking for the development of homeless where we can sponsor people that have an identity somewhere else when they need to collaborate with us.
Thank you. And I think that's an excellent articulation of that. And I think that's one of the problems we face. In the United States, in one of probably the last Iraq war or the current, depending on how you look at it, they banned at one point the use of PowerPoint when they had junior officers doing presentations on, what plan should we do? Because suddenly the army was deciding, right, the plan which was presented the best was the one to go with, not necessarily the one which actually met the needs of the tactical requirements or whatever. And I think when we're talking about use cases, we're always talking about also the people who aren't here. So again, librarians may well have issues with the Federation, issues they need to solve through identity and access management. Sometimes they'll find it hard to articulate that. So when you do go back to institutions, again, we urge, talk to your librarians, because there might be things they're scared of coming to us about and expressing, and you'll actually be able to help them do that. And again, probably most people in this audience won't have that problem. It's to some extent sort of talking to the converted, but institutional librarians, might well be wanting your support there. So this is the sort of thing we want to have a discussion on. Entity categories, categorization within the Federation, having that information in the metadata. An entity category could be a member of a category, but it also could support a category. Information obviously can be displayed in metadata. You could have it, a control policy for the attribute release and to support discovery. So these are the sorts of questions we want to be talking about. What categories might be useful in the UK, international aspect of it, the processes to do this, the privacy implications, and particularly what is needed to get IDPs to release information. And obviously, you're the go-to guys, so you know how you think about information within your institution. I'll put their answers on a metaphorical postcard, please. Today's a chance to talk about these sorts of things, but also off list, we've got the GIST Shibboleth list, we've got the GIST Shibboleth libraries list, and also the service at ukfederation.org.uk. It is a help desk, but don't always treat it as just, I have a problem when I email them. It's also effectively a discussion forum. If you've got a problem statement, a use case, an issue, send it to that, and it isn't just, somebody ticks it and solves it and says, right, it will be discussed by the Federation, and it's the way you feed into things like our technical advisory group, and it's partly how we decide, do we spend money on developing attribute sets or trident missiles or hostilities.